It's art time, Darcy. Time to make some art. I know that old bird is loud. Time to get some art done. What do you think we should paint today? You want to work on our journal today? I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to do our August bullet journal. It's going to be a beautiful day in the studio. So I have a 140-pound hot pressed watercolor paper. I am going to do my cover on a piece of watercolor paper. My bullet journal does not do watercolor. It does gouache just fine, but not watercolor. It's just too wet. And I am going to use a nice wet and wet technique. A wet and wet technique, all you do is you wet the paper first, and in this case I am wetting the wings of the butterfly. I went with the butterfly theme because I have tons of butterflies in my yard during the month of August. That seems like it's just an explosion of butterflies. So once I get those wings all wet, I am dropping in like a nice deep orange in there right next to the body, and then I'm just coming back with some yellow, and I'm just letting those two colors mix and mingle right on the paper. This is your wet and wet technique. It gives those spontaneous mixtures and those soft edges that watercolor is famous for. So that's all I'm doing here, and I'm just gonna, do a little yellow around the edges on those bottom wings, and that's all there is to it. We're not getting complicated. We're not trying to paint each section individually. I'm just doing easy butterflies. I didn't want to get it too complicated for this month. So this is just an easy way to do butterflies without having to paint like each section of their wings. Instead, we're just wetting the whole wing space, all of it, and then just dropping in random colors and just letting the wet and wet mix and mingle right there on the paper. Just putting in a little turquoise there, maybe a little bit of green, just however you want to do it. There, right now, I am picking up a little bit of excess paint. It's a little too wet for me in that orange butterfly, so I'm just dabbing it off onto my paper towel, picking it up with my damp, dry brush. Coming back over here, I am adding some of that beautiful yellow green with that blue, maybe a little yellow on the edges. And I think that yellow will probably eventually just blend into the green and it'll just become like a yellow green. But, it's a very free-flowing, very spontaneous type of technique. So I'm not getting too worried about it. I'm just letting that watercolor flow and do its thing. Now, I'm not going to mix like orange and blue together because you'll get gray on the same butterfly unless I let the layers dry, but that's not what I'm going to do. Instead, I'm just doing each butterfly different colors of orange and blue. And I don't know, right here I'm trying to decide, and some of them I'm just doing like a solid yellow, the smaller butterflies. It's really up to you. You don't even have to use the colors I'm using. You can change your color palette to something else, whatever you like for your butterfly colors. I just thought this palette looked really summery. For some reason, it reminds me of popsicles. These colors do. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But, yeah, that's all I'm doing is wetting each one of the wings. I'm wanting to call them leaves, with nice clean water, or as clean as my brush has it. I'm not getting too hung up on how clean it is. And then just dropping in some of those colors that I like. Again, we're just wetting the wings and dropping in colors, letting those colors mix right on the wings. We're not trying to do each individual section of the wings. We don't need to. This is just a simple, easy, loose watercolor. And it just makes it just less complicated. We're not trying to do complicated this month. I want lots of explosions of color and just, no complications. So now I'm getting like a little bit more of that green and just dropping it into this butterfly. I had used it all up already. So I'm really happy with this color palette with the green and the turquoise and the orange and yellow. I just think that looks summery to me. But again, you can make your butterflies purple, violet, pink. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Just, tailor it to whatever makes you happy. And we got some more little tiny butterflies, and I'm just painting those whatever colors, and they're more solid. I'm not adding as much, like 2 different colors in those. They're so tiny. You can. I tried it on one. It didn't make a big difference, so I just made those more of a solid color. We got this little butterfly peeking out from behind this one, so we're just going to wet his wings. We're going to go with the orange and drop that in there while it's wet. I just love the wet on wet technique for this. It's loose. It's beautiful when it mixes together. It's spontaneous and it's easy. Beginners can do this. It's so easy. That's why I picked it. The design looks complicated because it's just a bunch of butterflies, but it really isn't if you paint it this way. If you just do this wet on wet and get your colors mixed together and then let those dry. And while that's drying, I am going to paint my month name, August, and I'm going with sort of an aqua green here, aqua blue green at the very bottom, and then some of that lighter turquoise toward the top, and I'm just letting those two blend together sort of in halfway point so that it almost looks like it's an ombre or a gradient. It goes darker to lighter at the top. So that's the effect I'm trying to go for. I also switched brushes. I'm using a little detail brush. I love these tiny little detail brushes. They are made by Golden Maple. I will link those below. They are not expensive, and I like them for both watercolor, especially when I'm doing small, tiny watercolor like this, and I love them for gouache too. I use them for both gouache and watercolor. You could probably use them for acrylic, but I would buy a separate set for my acrylic because acrylic, the resins and the chemicals in it can be a little bit harsh on your brush, so I would use a separate set for those. I would not use the same ones that I used for my watercolor and gouache. So I'm working on this word August, and I'm getting the little ombre effect that I want to get. I like it, and it's really simple. I just put the darker color at the bottom and then the lighter turquoise toward the top, and just use my brush to let those blend together sort of in the middle. Let them touch together and blend together. And if you get a little bit too much paint or you want to lighten that top area of your letter, all you have to do is rinse your brush out, dry it off a little bit so that it's just damp, and then come back and lift that paint with that damp, dry brush, and then just wipe the excess paint onto your kitchen roll, paper towel, whatever you're using to dry your brushes and to get the excess paint off. I use paper towels. A lot of artists use sponges. Some artists use regular like terry cloth towels or cotton diapers, things like that. So if you want to save the planet, those are probably a better option, is to use like something you can throw in the washer, and then, once you get it thrown in the washer, you can use it over and over and over again, and it will save the trees. Now, painting their bodies, and I'm just sort of painting their bodies the opposite color of their wings. So if their wings are orange, the bodies I'm painting that blue. If they're green, I'm painting the body orange. So I'm just doing an opposite thing. Whatever the wing colors are, I'm making the body the opposite color. And that's just my choice. You could make them black. You can make, the body whatever color you wanted to. You can make them match the wings if you would like. But I'm just trying to sort of unify everything and carry that same palette throughout everywhere. That's my goal, is just to keep it unified. So now I'm going to let that dry, let all the watercolor dry, or you can make it dry with a hair dryer, whatever you want to. And now I'm just taking a 03 fine liner, and it's an Ohuhu fine liner. Actually, this one I think is a 08. And I'm just drawing in, just following the lines that I drew at the beginning, and just drawing those sections in, and that gives it the look of a butterfly, and doing a few dots here and there. I'm not making it too complicated, just outlining and then just sketching in those sections. But you can see my pencil lines through the watercolor paint, so I'm just following those pencil lines pretty much. And I didn't have to paint each one of those sections individually because I used that wet on wet technique. I made it so much easier on myself. Now, if it was a large butterfly and I was doing it for some other reason, I would take my time and do each section and all that stuff. But this one, I just want to keep it simple and sort of like an illustration since it is in my bullet journal. I'm not trying to get too crazy. But that black marker, that really just sort of makes it pop. Now you can see that is a gorgeous butterfly. I think those black outlines define it so well. And then you can come back and color in his eyes and his little antennae. I don't know what they're called. And then, I'm giving him some designs on his body, just like that. And I'm just going to continue that throughout. And remember, I already traced the actual lines when I first did my line drawing on the paper. So they're still there and I can see them through the watercolor paint. So I'm not making up these lines. These were already pre-drawn. You could make up your lines if you'd like. That is perfectly fine. I always want you to be as creative as you want to be. You don't have to just, go along to everybody else's little drummer. You can go ahead and start your own little rhythm and do your own art the way that you would like to do it. I highly encourage that. Just use this as a guide and a jumping off point, and there you go. You'll just have your own little personal creative expression on your butterflies. Or you can just use the template. If you're in my Patreon, you'll get the template for this, the traceable outline drawing and all of the layouts for my bullet journal. I have all of those in my Patreon. You also get the supply list for all the colors and everything that I used. So you might want to go check out my Patreon. I don't know. Maybe not. And just some little antenna, and I'm just putting in some little designs. These don't even have to be realistic. These are not, butterflies that exist in the world, but these are butterflies that exist in our world, in our little bullet journal world. So they can be any kind of design that we would want them to be, any kind of colors that we would want them to be. It's totally up to you. And then just outline those little bodies, outline those wings, give them their little antenna. We're getting there. We are getting there. But be sure to let these dry first, or your marker may not, your fine liner may not mark on those. I've had that happen before where I got too ambitious and started to try to outline before the watercolor was completely dry, and it did not work. So make sure that your butterflies are completely dry before you try to outline those and put the designs on their wings. That is a good tip right there. And you can color in some areas. I'm just going to color in the edge of this one's wings, just sort of darken it up. I don't know, it just gives it a little extra pop, I think. And it makes it look different than the other ones. We want them to each look individual, their own little individual looks. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. And then we're just going to outline the word August with our pen. And then I really like how this turned out. This is really colorful. It looks summery. It's pretty. I love butterflies. Who does not love butterflies? And then we are just going to let this dry. And this would be a good time for me to tell you about my Patreon. If it starts at $3 a month, of course I have a free option too. $3 a month, you get downloadable art, coloring pages, worksheets, all kinds of things like that. And then I have 4 different levels, and the bonus content depends on which tier that you join. You could get coloring pages, downloadable art, Planner printables, instant access to a library of 93 mini tutorials, and those come with supply packets, outline drawings, everything you need to complete the tutorial. You'll get exclusive Patreon tutorials, a monthly live, and then my highest tier gets actual prints from me sent to them in the mail. They get prints, they get stickers, and all different kinds of actual physical goodies. So you might want to look into that. I will link it below. Now we are going to start on our month at a glance spread. I have, of course, already sketched that out. And I went ahead and got some of my Tombow dual brush pens. These are watercolor markers. And I picked out colors that matched the watercolor as best as I could, you know, the colors that are in my cover page. And we're just going to carry those colors throughout with the same summery blue and orange palette. And this is just, I'm doing these a lot simpler. I just did it with the yellow. I colored it with the yellow marker, and then I put a little bit of the orange right along the edge next to the body. And now I'm taking the blender, and that's just a clear blender that comes with the Tombow set that I bought. And I'm just blending that orange and that yellow together. And once I get that in there, I'm just going to go around and do sort of the same thing like I did with the wet on wet technique, except for with the markers. I'm just coloring in those wings, and then I'm adding a little bit of a darker color sort of toward the body next to the center, and then blending it out with a clear blender. And I'm just putting a little bit of a darker green right here in the center, like next to the body. And then I'm going to get my blender, my clear blender, and blend all of that together. And then after I do this blending between each color, I take my blender and I mark it across a clean sheet of paper, and that cleans the tip of the blender so that I don't pull that blue into the orange or the orange into the blue. So that is a good tip for you. Make sure that when you go between colors with your blender, to take it and mark it onto a clean sheet of paper. Just make marks until the marks are clear, and that way you won't get your colors all muddy. So I put some yellow flowers with orange centers and then sort of yellow green leaves, trying to keep that palette going that I had at the cover. And this is really a simple design. And if you are part of my Patreon, the paid members, you will get the outline drawings for all of this, the layouts for my whole August planner, bullet journal planner. That is a perk of my paid membership. That way you can either trace it into your planner or just use it as a guide, whatever you want to do. It's up to you, but they are all downloadable. So I got all of those colored in. I got August colored in, and I did the same sort of ombre look. I used the darker marker at the bottom, lighter marker at the top, and then just used the clear blender to blend that in. And now I'm just using my fine liner and a ruler. I usually don't use a ruler, but this month I said, you know what, I'm going to do something. I'm going to mix it up. I am going to use a ruler. So I've got my month at a glance, and then I've got like a task bar over here to the side, or a to-do list, whatever you want to use it. You can use it to say what content that you need to make for the month, however you want to do it. Yours, whatever you want to use it for, but this is just how I've done it. I found that when bullet journaling, simple is best for me. And just like the cover, we are going to outline these. I am going to give you a tip. Make sure that your watercolor marker is dry before you do this, because your black will bleed into that watercolor marker if it's still wet. So either use your hair dryer or the heat gun on it, and that will dry it and keep that black from bleeding in. Now in one of these it did accidentally bleed in. It wasn't as dry as I thought, but that's okay. It's just part of the learning process, and you know, I'm not going to stress about it. I'm outlining my little flowers. I'm putting some line shading just around the center, outlining the leaves, putting a few veins in there just to give those some definition. And you can make them as complicated or as simple as you like. Give the the body a little bit of pattern on here for this one, outline it, just use your imagination. Now these do not have lines on them. I didn't do the lines for the sections of the wings on these, so I'm making it up as I go for these. I just wanted to do something different, and these were so small, I just decided that I could make up my own patterns on those wings, and I think they came out pretty good. So again, I encourage you, just try to make each, wing match the opposite wing as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be completely symmetrical, just close enough. Close enough works for the bullet journal. It doesn't have to be scary, and you see mine are not exactly matching. They're not exactly symmetrical, but I still think they look pretty. And pretty is what I'm going for, not perfect. Pretty, not perfect. So that's what I'm going for. You go for what you want to go for, but I'm going for pretty, not perfect. And I'm just going in here, just getting that pattern however I want it. And I'm sorry for the angle of the camera. You can barely see what I'm doing. Oh, my little doves, they are cheering us on. That's my hype crew behind me. They're hyping us up. Outlining the word August. Getting that all done. And I've already outlined, of course, all of the days of the month. I do 4 columns on one side, and I did 5 columns on the other side. And that's going to be obviously my days of the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then just for the headers of each day, I'm just taking my turquoise pen and just marking off those headers. And then of course I will number each day of the month. I'm just going to go ahead and brighten up some of these lines over here under my notes. Again, you can use that column for whatever you want. I'm going to use it for notes. You can use it for to-do or content that you might need to make for the month if you're a content creator, or your routine that you want, things that you have to do every month. Whatever. It's your bullet journal, whatever works for you. So now I'm just numbering the days, just getting those in there. And I like this sort of simple but really bright design. I'm really enjoying this month's theme, my butterfly theme. I like it a lot. So we're going to let that dry just a little bit, turn over, and this is my content creation spread. And we're going to do I just do an AUG for this. I didn't put the whole August up there. Again, I'm starting at the bottom with the darker blue, and then the really dark blue at the very, very bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead with my blender, and I'm just pulling all of those colors up to the top. And of course the blender is going to make them look a little bit lighter as they go to the top to give them that ombre or sort of gradated feel. So we got that in there. Then I'm just going to color all my little tiny butterflies. I just got little tiny butterflies on this spread because this is more about my content, and I found that over time of bullet journaling, the most that I use my bullet journal for is content creation. So I like to do the little columns, and each one of the columns is, one of my either social media, whatever content that I need to make. And then I have a to-do or a task bar. So mine are divided into like YouTube, Patreon, social media, and then sort of a planning type of space, and also like a task type of space. So that's how I do mine. You can do yours however you want to, obviously, depending on whatever type of social media, if you're a content creator, that you do. But this one just keeps me organized, keeps me knowing what I need to do ahead of time, looking toward the future, and keeps me on track. When I don't follow this, I get so far off track, and it's just not fun. It's not fun when you get so far behind. I also have a little calendar in the very corner right under August or right under AUG, and that way I can keep up with, what I need to do on what day. It's just a mini calendar, so I don't have to go back to my calendar at a glance. I have it right there. I can see what days are go when, what Monday videos I need to put out, whatever I need to do, what Patreon content, bonus content I need to make, and all those things. And I have my calendar there to keep me guided. And now I'm just outlining these little butterflies, giving them little bodies. I didn't go heavy on the decoration on this one because, like I said, content planning is the main focus of my bullet journal. I know a lot of people have health. They focus on health, daily meal planning, and things like that. But for me, it's all about the content planning. Now I have my weekly spread. The first week of August is a short week, and it starts on Thursday. So for this spread, what I did was I did my August up at the top, AUG. I did a small calendar underneath that. So of course I like to have my little calendars there so that I can keep up with the days of the week and see the overall view of the calendar and of the month. And then usually I divide the bottom into like 3 long rectangles. But since this is a short week and it doesn't start till Thursday, normally on this I would have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on the other side I would have Thursday, Friday, and then 1 rectangle for Saturday, Sunday that I would divide in half. But since this is the short week, I'm going to do like what week content, to do task boxes on this side, and then the other side I'll start my week with Thursday, since that is the first day of August. Again, I've did my butterfly pattern, and I just colored those in first with a little bit of the different colors, just like I did with the marker. I'm using my ruler again just to get these in here, get my lines in my boxes. And down here is my Saturday, Sunday at the bottom. That's the long rectangle I cut in half because I don't do a lot of content creation on Saturday and Sunday. I try to use that for my family. And the rest of the other one is Thursday, Friday. And if this was a full week, I would have these long rectangle boxes. I would have 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, and it would go like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the next page, Saturday, Sunday in those 2 little boxes at the bottom. But again, since this week starts off on a Thursday, I am doing some content creation type of blocks where I can brainstorm, do task lists, whatever I need to do. So there we go. So let's start at the beginning. This is our August cover page. Then we have our month at a glance with notes or whatever you want to put over there. Then we have our content creation layout so that I can get those organized. And then our first weekly spread. And then my weekly spreads go from there. I haven't finished those yet, but they will be finished before August starts. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. And I will link my Patreon below if you want to become a member. And I want to shout out to my Patrons. Thank y'all so much for all your support. It means the world to me.